All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, it's a who's who of college football programs from the power conferences that are going to be looking for a new head coach. And you can expect that number to continue to swell between now and the end of this college football season. So far, we've got UCLA, Florida, Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech, Penn State, Arkansas, and now LSU, who have all moved on from their head coaches so far this season. And there's a possibility that we could see Wisconsin, Auburn, North Carolina, Florida State, and Michigan State all join that growing list. I talked about this last night briefly after the news about Brian Kelly being let go at LSU. But buyout money is coming to college football and it's being given away like government stimulus checks right now. Okay. The expectations for these programs and the power conferences is higher than ever. And it's also tougher than ever to keep up. You think about it, the transfer portal has been good, and it's also been bad in college football, depending on what side of it that you're on. The power of the NILs. And the bottom line is with the NILs, you better have your program on point if you want to keep up in that category. Okay. And this along with the transfer portal, to me, are the equivalent to the salary cap in professional sports because it could change things for you very quickly if you know how to operate it. Mega conferences right now means unbalanced schedules because clearly everybody is not going to play each other. I mean, we've got a 16 team SEC, a 16 team Big 12, a 17 team ACC, and an 18 team Big 10. So the Big 10 and Big 12 are playing 9 conference games. Okay. This is the last year where the SEC and ACC are going to be playing 8 conference games, and they're going to 9 as well. So clearly, everybody can't play everybody. I mean, just look at Florida's schedule this year, for an example. And of course, Billy Napier has been let go. But Florida has had games, and they're going to continue to have games. But look at their schedule. They've got Georgia coming up. They've already had Texas. They've already had Texas A&M and LSU as well. And honestly, at the end of the day, all schedules are not created equal. Okay. But the bottom line is, regardless of how tough or easy that your schedule is, the boosters and alumni don't want to hear that. Why? Because they're pouring the money. They feel that they're pouring the resources into their beloved program, and they want to see their alma mater consistently in the discussion to win conference championships as well as getting to the college football playoff. But even with all of that said, there's only so many spots to be had at the top of the Big Ten, at the top of the SEC, ACC, and Big 12. Remember, 12 bids for the college football playoff. The group of five gets one. If Notre Dame is in that mix, they get one as well. That leaves 10 for everybody else. And if Notre Dame's not there, it still leaves only 11. So again, there's only so many top spots that are there, and everybody else is going to get lost in the shuffle. Okay. You just look at one some of these what's happened to some of these programs with conference expansion. Wisconsin has become an afterthought in the Big Ten, and there was a time that they were consistently at the top of this league, getting to the Rose Bowl. You think about Iowa. Iowa can no longer beat up on the also rans of the Big Ten West now that the divisions of these leagues no longer exist. Georgia is still successful, but they can no longer, beat up on the SEC East. There's other programs as well. You look at Miami. What has Miami been? And I talked about this before, but what has Miami been since they left the Big East and went to the ACC? They haven't been on the national brand that they were. We can go right down the list here. Same thing in the SEC. I mean, you think about it with this conference expansion, a school like Florida, what have they become? Okay. So again, there's only so many top spots that we can have. You think about Clemson and their recent struggles and the failure for them and Dabo Sweeney to adapt to this new era of college football that includes the portal and the NILs. And I mean, that also basically cost Mike Gundy his job at Oklahoma State. And I guess you could say that the SEC doesn't fit this mold completely. But in regards to the ACC, Big 12, and Big 10, we're talking about all of these conferences that now have to deal with cross country flights due to this conference expansion. And you have to ask yourself, if you're not succeeding, is it truly worth it? Now, you've got the ACC, SEC, Big 10, and Big 12 all slugging it out. And at the end of the day, Notre Dame could sit back and just wash their hands of all of this, and as these clubs are going to knock each other off, because Notre Dame is basically just laying in the weeds. And I said this after Notre Dame's run to the national championship game this past January. Because of that, you're never going to see Notre Dame join the conference. Why? Because for all of those other schools, if the further that they advance in the college football playoff, sure, it's more money, but they got to spread it around and share it with everybody in their respective league. Notre Dame doesn't have to do that, okay? And they are laughing all the way to the bank. Notre Dame doesn't have to, and this right here is where it helps Notre Dame to not have to worry about a conference championship game, not have to worry because they can set their own schedule, okay? And they can sit back and watch these other teams knock each other off as long as they're in that top 12, okay? So getting back to the grand scheme of things with this landscape and the pressure that's on these coaches more than ever, don't get me wrong, the fruits of your labor can be very sweet. But as we're seeing, it's also become easier to get lost in the shuffle. And it's one of those where all money, and I say it like this, all money's not good money from the standpoint that, hey, if these schools are willing to pay you 7, 8, 9, 10, $11 million a year to be a head coach, you better produce. But I think these longer term contracts, which are a way to lure coaches from jobs or keep them away from leaving your school for another job, I think it allows these coaches somewhat to get complacent because in recent years, most of these coaches who have gotten these big time extensions with these lofty buyouts next to them, they've gotten very comfortable. Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, James Franklin at Penn State. Brian Kelly had another big buyout number towards him. So the bottom line is, if you're going to get that guy, you better make sure that you have the guy and you have to keep him hungry as your head coach. But at the end of the day, it's very easy to get lost in the shuffle. And I really feel it's only going to get worse when the SEC and ACC each go to 9 conference games like the Big 10 and Big 12 already have. But to the ACC's credit, they're pushing for a game against another power conference for each of their schools, and I think it's going to work for them to help strengthen their case to get to the college football playoff. But then, like I've said this before, and I'll say it again, maybe we could see an ACC Big 12 football challenge because I think things are going to shape up sooner rather than later that we have a SEC Big 10 football challenge. Okay, but getting back to these schools that have moved on for their coaches and the schools that are probably going to join them, okay? With all of these schools who have decided to move on from these coaches, will any of them find a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? Because, okay, in the case of Florida, they're looking for somebody to get them atop the big boys once again of the SEC and on the national stage. Florida's never made the college football playoff. Okay, you look at UCLA; they need somebody who's going to make them relevant in the Big Ten. Oklahoma State, they moved on from Mike Gundy, but what was Oklahoma State for so many years prior to Mike Gundy? Arkansas, they've got to try to find a way to keep up in the SEC, but they got the resources down there to make it happen. Penn State, we just saw the run that James Franklin had, in Happy Valley, but his biggest thing was being unable to win that big game against ranked teams, top 10 teams, and of course his struggles against Michigan and Ohio State. Everything else he did. So the next guy that comes into that chair, that's what he's going to have to deal with. You've got to win big games there. Same thing goes for LSU, and the same thing is going to be for some of these other programs. Now, of course, some of them are going to target coaches, at group of five schools, and you know what? They're going to offer them a lot of money. Some of them are going to have success, some of them are not. But at the end of the day, the grass is not always greener. But I think what we are seeing more than ever, the pressure to win at these programs. And the bottom line is going 8-4 and getting to a bowl game ain't gonna cut it anymore. Okay, the bottom line is these folks, these boosters, these heavy influencers, okay, at these institutions, more than ever, they want to see you keeping up with the Joneses. They want to see you have a consistent top 10 program. They want to see you getting to conference championship games, winning conference championship games, getting to the college football playoff. Okay, so it's putting more of an emphasis on recruiting, more of an emphasis on that transfer portal, keeping every part of your program running like a well-oiled machine. And if you slip up, there's really not a lot of margin for error. And we're finding that out. Like I said, some high-profile coaches have already gotten buyouts. And I guarantee you, between now and the end of November, there will be more to come. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw, you know what to do. Just hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check me out anytime at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you give me that follow, it'll be my pleasure to give you that follow right back in return. Okay. Also, if you're on Instagram, the same thing goes right there. You check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Give me that follow. I'll give you that follow right back. And you can also check us out on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off and I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.